Hello students, so today we are going to take up the poem Breath by Birago Diop. Now let's understand something about Birago Diop. Let's know about him. See, Birago Diop was a Senegalese poet and he played a very important role in the Negritude movement. Okay, there was a movement that happened um, in the 1930s. The name of that particular movement is Negritude, Negritude, Negritude movement. Now this was a literary and ideological movement and it was led by francophone African and Caribbean intellectuals. Okay, and it happened in the 1930s. Okay, now this movement wanted to reclaim African identity, okay, their culture and values in the face of colonial rule, and also uh, in the face of European assimilation policies. Okay, so Diop was very much influenced, being very much influenced by the African oral traditions and folklore. He decided to become a part of this movement and work to preserve and adapt these uh, into written French literature. Okay, now this poem Breath, it was written during a time when many African countries were moving towards decolonization. That means अपने आप को जितने भी कॉलोनाइजर्स थे उनको हटा करके अपने आप को इंडिपेंडेंस पाना चाह रही थी, राइट? सो दिस historical moment inspired a return to the indigenous roots, okay, and also to the indigenous traditions, okay, and spirituality as a form of cultural resistance as well, okay, and healing also after the alienation caused by the European colonial rule. Okay, now even though our poet, that is Birago Diop, was trained as a veterinary surgeon in France, he is best remembered for his contributions that he made to African literature, especially his poems and folklores, okay, folk tales. Why? Because he drew extensively from the traditional Wolof culture of Senegal, Wolof, WOLOF, Wolof culture of Senegal, to write his folk tales. Okay, now we will move on to the poem. So this poem, Breath, that you have to read in your course, it is a poem which is very much rooted in your African oral tradition. Okay, it reflects your traditional animist beliefs. Now, in many African societies, especially in your West Africa, it is believed that ancestors are more like an active presence in the daily lives of the living. Okay, that means ancestors abhi bhi hai. Even though they are dead, they are not dead actually. So there is an idea that you will come across in this poem that the dead are never dead. Okay, now this idea is very central to this particular poem as well as to the African cosmology. Okay, which means that death is not an end. Okay, rather it is a continuation of existence in a different form. So the ancestors are being remembered or revered and invoked in rituals. Okay, it is believed that ancestors dwell or reside in these natural elements like trees, rivers, wind, fire. Okay, and in this way they continue to guide and influence the people who are living. Okay, and if we come up to this particular poem, we can also say that it is more like a form of resistance to the colonial idea that African cultures were very primitive, were very superstitious, and how they are doing so by elevating the indigenous spirituality and philosophy through poetry. Okay, so Diop is trying to reclaim the African identity and cultural dignity through his poems. So, in this poem, we will come across repetition of phrases like "the dead are never dead," or maybe you will come across these lines that listen more to things than to the words that are said. कुछ ऐसा ही है, ठीक है? So both these phrases, they are inviting a very non-Western way of perceiving the world, a world where people value nature, spirit, intuition, and they value continuity over that Western rationalism and materialism. Okay, now there is one more element to it, that the poem tells you about ecological interconnectedness. आजकल हम लोग इसको स्पिरिचुअल इकोलॉजी भी कहते हैं. नाउ व्हाट डज इट मीन? इट मीन्स दैट द एलिमेंट्स ऑफ नेचर लाइक वाटर, फायर, विंड, trees, all are merely physical. Okay, all are not just merely physical. It is rather that it is spiritual as well. They are more like breathing entities. Okay, now this again is a very big contrast to what the Western people say about mind, spirit, and body matter, right? Now, and in the later part of the poem, you are going to find that our poet Diop mentions certain words like covenant, law, etc., which is going to bind humans to the spirits of the dead and to nature, back to nature. Now, this again echoes the African philosophical concepts like Ubuntu. You must have heard about it. Ubuntu. Ubuntu. I मैं बोल रही हूँ हाँ उबंतु or the idea of math. Math means balance, order, or morality in ancient African thought, we call it. Okay, so people or individuals, they are very much interconnected with the community, with their ancestors, and the natural world. Okay, now coming to the poem.